Okay, so color was the element of art that I really didn't go over. And my friend Emily didn't go over it. And I really appreciate being able to steal some of her videos for this. Okay, so color is actually physics. Light shoots itself out and it hits objects, and whatever's happening within those objects, it reflects back color. And so light is produced when light is reflected or emitted from an object. So emitted meaning like your computer screen or something along those lines, a flashlight, something like that. And it's how light reacts to objects. So if you go through your family room right now, or your kitchen or your bedroom or whatever, and you turn out all the lights, if you really, really, really look at the colors have all changed. They've all probably gotten darker. If you turn on one light versus three lights in your house, things are different. If you have on a red sweater and you go into your family room and you look at it really closely, and maybe your parents have used a different light bulb in the kitchen, and you go in there, it might look a little bit different. And if you go outside where the sunlight shines on it, it might look a little bit different. That red changes based upon the coloration of the light that's shining on it. So light's pretty exciting. I am still actually learning about light myself. I find it fascinating, but the reason that I didn't go into science and I went into art is because I have memory of creating things. I do not have a working memory of important science concepts. Otherwise, I might be doing biology in addition to art. So, art has different properties. It has hue, it has value, it has intensity. We'll talk about this more. We have an entire color unit later on. But hue is another name for the word color. So it's a red hue, or it is the color red. It could be a blue-based red hue, or it could be a warm or orange-based red hue, just to give you ideas. Intensity refers to the brightness of a color, measured by boldness or dullness. So an example of that is that I have two yellows here. They're both yellow. Most of you would say, oh, that's kind of yellow. And then you would say, oh, that's yellow. But how can they both be yellow when they're clearly two different colors? And we could use a variety of different words to describe how they are different. But the important one is the value. Is it a lighter value? Actually, I totally messed this up. This is a dullness. It's a duller yellow. This actually refers to intensity. See, I told you I'm still learning. And rather than reshoot the video, I'm going to add this one in here too. So we have a light and a mid-range and a dark. So we have a light to dark value, but we also have a very bright, intense yellow, and we have two kind of muted yellows. And these two kind of muted yellows would be a little bit more dull. So we can refer to these as light and dark, and if they're light and dark, that's value. If we're talking about them in terms of really bright, or duller, then we're talking about intensity. So those are the three properties of color. Hue, so the straight up color, or the light versus dark, the value of it, or we're talking about the intensity, super intense yellow bright, or a duller yellow. So different things for you to consider and think about. Three primary colors. I'm going to put my two duller yellows back, and I'm going to pull out my primary colors. You guys learned these a long, long time ago. Now, you guys learned red, you learned blue, and you learned yellow. That is one version of the primary colors. Another version of the primary colors, just to make sure that things are really complicated, are magenta, cyan, and yellow. And this red here, this printed red, is actually closer to magenta. This blue here is closer to a cyan, And this yellow here is more of a, it's a true yellow. What happens is when you were little, if you took this kind of red right here, which is, traditionally red, this red right here has just a smidge of yellow in it to make it brighter because we were messing around with the intensity and the value of it to make you register red. But when you went to color purple with this red and you take it and you mix it with your blue, you ended up with this real murky looking, muddy, violet-ish type of color that was kind of brown. But if you take magenta and cyan and you mix them together, you get that real true violet that we are often looking for and that we can't find. So I'll pull out my violet color. So there's some tricky things. There's a lot of opinions in the art world. Everybody has an opinion because, why not? We have nothing better to do than to be opinionated. So that would be somewhere in the neighborhood of our primary colors. And I always taught my little elementary kids, they never change, but that's clearly not always the case. Now, when I take these colors, let me see if I got more of a magenta. There's more of a magenta. Hey, look at that. My coloring pencil makes it look more pink purple than what it really should be. When I take my yellow and my magenta and I mix them together, I should get some beautiful variety of orange. So when I take my magenta and my yellow and mix them together, I should get orange. When I take my yellow and my blue and I mix them together, I should get green. And then when I take my blue and my magenta and I mix them together, I should get violet. And this printout, when I printed it out, this printed out something that looks more like indigo rather than true violet. But on your computer screen, it looks more violet. Printers do weird things with colors, and that's why sometimes your printed photographs look different than what you see on your computer screen. Our computer screens do some weird things sometimes. And then the light within the room kind of does some weird things too. So these are our Roy G bibs. So red, orange, yellow, Roy. G for green. Viv is your blue, your indigo, and your violet. Indigo is on the visual spectrum. So this is our rainbow order for true visual spectrum. The visual spectrum is what you see in the sky when the rainbow happens. It's also how we can determine what other planets and stars, what chemical composition they are based upon the color of light that's emitted from the atmosphere around them. Pretty fun, pretty cool stuff. Now, if we're just talking about primaries and secondaries, there's our primaries and secondaries. Indigo happens to be an intermediate color. And so an intermediate color happens when I take a primary color and a secondary color and I mix them together. So indigo is my blue violet. And then I also have one of my favorites, turquoise. And then in between those two, my green is really, really kind of green. So like a lime green that's halfway between yellow and green. I have my yellow orange. And I have red orange. So that right there. And then there's also this color right here that would happen in between my purple and my red, which would be my red violet. So there's my intermediate colors. So over here, just for the sake of argument, I'm running out of time and I really want to be done. This is a 10-minute long video. So I have Roy G bibs spelled out and I'm just going to color each one of my stripes. I might make them wavy because it's kind of cool to make stuff a little bit fun. And I will color these out. Just for the sake of argument, over here, I did a color wheel. I started with my red and my yellow. So my red, my yellow, and my blue, or my cyan, my magenta, and my yellow. My violet. If you want to use your crayons, coloring pencils, or whatever, and you want to go ahead and play around with color mixing, I would very much encourage you to do that. When I do color, I would encourage you to go ahead and start using your coloring pencils more forcefully. Not encouraging you to break your coloring pencils, but to press and color fully with them. Now, there's a whole color family that I did not talk about. And that color family, well, I haven't really talked very much about any of the color families, but neutral colors. And neutral colors make up almost every other color that we are used to. At this point in my life, I wear neutral colors more often than not because right now my hair is dyed purple. And the purple is a little aggressive. And there we go. My neutral colors that I wear kind of help balance it out. So neutral colors include a black and a white. The funny thing is, if you go to the paint store, people are going to tell you that white comes in a variety of shapes, or variety of colors. And when you start looking at white paint chips, you realize that's the case. Sometimes white is like my paper white. And this actually comes close to my paper white. Sometimes white is a little bit yellower than that. Sometimes it's a little bit browner than that. Sometimes it's a little bit oranger. Sometimes it's a little bit greener. There's cool whites and warm whites, and you see this kind of pop up in light bulbs too. Other neutral colors include browns. Now browns, just like whites, come in warm and cool tones. So you have this brown that I just colored here that doesn't look too dissimilar to red, but it is a neutral, it is a dull red, if you will, with a heavy dose of brown. So that brown right there, a warm brown versus a cool brown, and this cool brown starts to kind of look like the blue of my color over here. If I swing this around, you see, the wood of my desk is a warm wood versus the cool wood. This panel is kind of more of a cool brown. So, and this almost looks orange. Initially, you would say it was brown, but then up against this, you're like, oh, that's orange. So, different ways of thinking about color. So, there you go. And I hope this helps a little bit. And I will be talking to you guys soon.